Hey everyone, this is Karen, Shaman with Naturally with Karen. It is Friday night on May the 31st, and you might be watching this on YouTube another day. It might even be years from now. So I hope that you find this really informational, and I hope you find this really good for your psyche, and I hope that it makes you very hopeful that you have the ability to turn things around. Everything that I'm going to talk about in this particular video is going to have to do with a series that I want to present called Toxic Brain. I'm going to explain exactly what I mean, bless up, and I'm going to explain exactly what's going on and why we're experiencing what we are today. Now, if you're living in a very controlled environment, you have lots of resources, some of what I'm sharing with you might seem like it's really way out there. It might seem like it just doesn't apply to you. It doesn't feel real. It might seem kind of conspiracy or all these things because your environment is still very controlled. But I have had the privilege of being able to work with a great number of people, most of which who intend to keep their situations private for lots of reasons. When we put things out there publicly on social media, even testimonials, a lot of people don't want employers and family and so forth to know that they actually went to see someone who's not a Western allopathic doctor. And this really shocked me and caught me off guard for a long part of my life, a big part of my life, because people would say, I really don't want people knowing that I came to see you for my health. And, we, on a daily basis, we know people, we talk with people, and they're going to tell you things that you go, geez, I really can't believe they think that way. But they do. I don't get to control what everyone thinks, okay? So today is part one of Toxic Brain that I promised to bring. This is something I've given a great deal of thought about. Many other people who are healers, shamans, detoxification people, even people that go to school to become a very similar to an allopath, but they're a naturopathic, because most people are going to bow down to the term doctor. But the term doctor is a relatively new term, and it's actually something that it was always women. Actually, what really is the truth is that women were always healers. And until we started becoming, placed into institutions that we call schools, which no longer synchronize with how the student needs to learn and what we need to learn as human beings to stay connected as people, we started to have a lot of disconnection. This part one is about mental and emotional health. Mental health, if you look it up, really has to do with whether or not you have a mental illness, okay? And illness, from the word ill, sick, ill, and toxic, all means that your body isn't able to function as it's supposed to because it's ill. That's why we say you're illin, or, illnesses are what we would typically refer to. But today, because they've been around so long and they're so compounded, there's such an amalgamation of so many different things going on, we call them a disease, right? And we give them a diagnostic. Always syllableize or break down your words, and you'll be able to see things that you've never seen before. We call that word sound. It's something I started looking into since the 70s, okay? So the first thing is mental and emotional health, and mental health means that you don't have one of the illnesses described in the DSM. Emotional health means that as you're, experiencing how you react in life, how your emotions are a big part of your living internal waters, okay? So when you cease to be, your waters are flowing, your lymph, your blood, and so everything inside is circulating. The waters are cleansing. It's moving your lymphatic system. And when it's not, you're going to go into mental and emotional health issues. It's really that simple. Now, I want you to follow along because with children today having so many obsessive, impulsive, compulsive, attention difficulties, we've got all kinds of categories and names for them. They're really all the same thing. And what they are is illness, toxicity. But you've got trolls out there right now that set up people that hold the burger, that tell you that the doctor helped me so much with all these medications, bought and paid for studies that tell you, well, it's all your serotonin and your dopamine, and we've got to get your brain chemicals right. No. As I'm rehabilitating a dog right now and have at least 50 times in my past 50 plus years, we also rehabilitate humans by peeling back the layers of the onion, so to speak, and getting to the real root cause. Okay. Now, I wrote down a couple things here I want to go over. So the study of the brain is basically neurology, and it's just short for neurons because there are nerve cells, meaning that they work inside of the brain and the central nervous system. So the signs of mental and emotional health as well as toxic brain, and you're going to know them really well, are rigidity. Okay, can you think of examples of rigidity? Well, I can because I lived it being a therapeutic foster mom for Northwood Children's Homes in Duluth and in California at Homes for Kids. Rigidity, meaning rigid, no, I'm not doing that. I don't think that way. No, I'm not going to change my diet. It's too much work. I'm not going to do these things. I go to my job and I don't want to get a new job. I don't want to learn new things at my job. It's rigidity. Okay. Rigidity, or you might call it inflexibility, are basically kind of similar. They're pretty much the same. And that's why, as a certified yoga teacher, and maybe you are too, or maybe you love to do yoga, a flexible spine is a flexible mind. What you're going to eat, if you're eating wheat, is going to contribute. Good evening, Michaela, and bless up, Kim. Good to see you, Kathy Vaughn. Rigidity. With children, it used to be 10 and up or puberty, but now we're calling 2 and 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds oppositionally defiant, or ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, as if we're machines and we need to be in or out or disordered or in good working order. We're not machines. And this is dangerous language to use because we are getting further and further away from our connection to being humans. And that's the difference between a shaman and a white lab jacket. A big difference. Second of 4 things in part 1, toxic brain, that I have put together tonight: impulsive. Okay. So we know that by the container ADHD or ADD, right? You're just kind of impulsive, but we see it when we go shopping. We've got people who are like, I don't know, I'm not really quite sure why I bought that. And they're just kind of buying things, or they've got to go gambling to the casino because they're very impulsive. They overspend, they over hoard. They've got, 100 cats living in their house, the cat lady, we'll talk about me. I've got 4 dogs right now. But very impulsive, like, oh, sure, I'll do that. But then they're not really thinking it through, right? Impulsive means your living waters inside of you that circulate between your cerebral spinal fluid, right? That they tap into when you're getting a C-section has to circulate between the brain and the spinal, right? So if your lymphatic system is dirty due to auto intoxication, so you're constipated, it's the first disease everyone gets, and that bowel sludge is constantly getting toxic, okay? Number 3, you're excessively effuse with your emotions. A lot of big words, meaning that You really, you cry really easy at the drop of a hat. I mean, you get angry really easy. You road rage. I mean, your emotions are just diffuse. Your water is just full of copper. You're just a high copper personality. This is why, having been a high copper personality myself for years, this is why I take zinc. Please don't guess what it is and start taking minerals, and don't guess. Do the prudent thing and order the profile number 2 hair tissue mineral analysis. I'll put a link over to the side there. Excessively effused feelings come from 2 or 3 things. Your situation is very stressful and unstable. Your body has a super high amount of copper, which is estrogen, and or your zinc resources are extremely low, or your body is trying to get rid of a lot of heavy metals or toxic elements, and your body can't really handle, the imbalance, the illness inside. Okay. And you'll know that with your hair tissue mineral analysis. If I hadn't read the empirical, double blind, absolutely pure science of Dr. Watts, I wouldn't be such a staunch believer, because you can Google clean diet, you can Google detoxification, you can Google hair testing, and you can Google all these things and come up with negativity. The same way that Aldi's can move into Cloquet, Minnesota, and all of a sudden Aldi's and other meats are identified in articles as being toxic or with salmonella. And that's because another major player doesn't want another player in the resource pile. So we have trolls today, and this is a part of business that you're going to really have to understand, overstand, right? Is that the competitive nature of the monopoly that is the allopathic medical system. They want you being a faithful subscriber to their blood serum testing, to their injections, to their prescriptions. I was at the dog park tonight taking the animal that I'm rehabilitating, Pablo and Luna. So I took 3, and I had taken Fire and the other rehab dog out on a walk. And I ran into a woman who, hopefully she'll be watching this live stream and, show me how to connect with her again. And she worked at a local pharmacy. And I said, what was the number 1 medication, that people came to get that you remember? And she said, gabapentin. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my God. It used to be known as, bless up, Anthony, it used to be known as Neurontin, okay? And it was given before for other reasons. So the last one, the 4 of number 4, is because of disconnection. So why do we have as many mental and emotional health issues? Is because of disconnection. Now, we're missing mother, or mother is cold-hearted. Mother has been cast into a very disempowered role. She was married off young. She was gotten rid of. She was high copper. Her hormones got the better of her. She was trying to make it financially, and it's not easy for women. The other aspect of disconnect is all the folks that have been taking the acetaminophen and the Tylenol, and what that's done to our empathy, the disconnect that it has produced for people on an emotional level to be able to feel and think and sense. So if you've got rigidity, impulsivity, you've got a lot of anxiety, and you've got mental and emotional health instability because your minerals, your diet, your need to detox, these are things that you can easily turn around. Except that with a disconnect and the apathy, it might feel as though it's something that's way too insurmountable. It's too big to take on. And we go to psychiatry, and we go to counseling, and we go to psychologists, and we go to our doctors, and it's too easy to go get a pill immediately. It's too easy to go get a Lortab for the migraines, the gabapentin for severe migraines, and all the other different pains that we have, like for RA, rheumatoid arthritis. But the brain fog sets in. The memory issues start to set Uh-oh, I've got a bad, hoping I'm going to reconnect here. Uh-oh. I'm hoping to reconnect here if you can still see me. Okay. Hoping to reconnect. Can you guys still see me? I hope. I don't know. Uh-oh. Hoping. Oh, good. Okay, good. You see me. That's great. I was like, oh no, it keeps saying trying to reconnect. So I'm going to keep going then. Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. So when it comes to toxic brain, we're really not learning from home and hearth anymore. We're not learning our good daily habits. And instead, thank you. Instead, we're picking up habits from the commingling of same age group classrooms inside of institutional buildings that teach us a regurgitated, processing, programming of English language, history, mathematics and everything. We're not really learning how do we grow food? How do we sew our clothing? How do we come into a trade that we can enjoy, when we're 18 years old? How do we cooperate together? How do we take care of the babies all the way into the elders? How do we keep that connection alive? And so children are going to daycare from infants on, and elders are going off to assisted living and group homes and hospitals. And we're just farming everything out from our weddings, our funerals. And it's really too much for the brain, where before we took care of managing everything ourselves. Okay. So I've got a couple things I want to talk about here. So we're stressed when it comes to families, family members, right? Got the opioid issues and so many people taking different drugs like the gabapentin, the Lortabs. We've got issues with our neighbors and a lot of pain there. With our coworkers, keep saying trying to connect. So I hope you guys can see me okay. When it comes to children, because we have so many generations now that have come from mothers who had toxic dental work done, right? Who had a lot of injections of some of these chemicals like aluminum and formaldehyde, who have been using waters full of halogens, chlorine and bromine and bromine and fluoride, etc., right? We need, as a first consideration, to take a look at doing TMA, tissue mineral analysis, by using hair, which is a form of tissue, or fingernail clippings, so that we can see what's actually really going on. That should be your first order of operations. So how would we get a toxic brain? I mean, let's break that down a little bit. How would you get a toxic brain? The modern day child, especially from the late 1970s on, would maybe be breastfed for a month or 2 or 6 months, if at all. If not, was prematurely disconnected from connection with the breast and the antibodies that mom makes, we were instructing moms to, go get baby formula, because it was very important for them to have those essential calories and nutrients. But if you read the back of the bottle on the baby formula, you're going to see ingredients that you would never want to feed a baby, even from some of the most prestigious companies, even from some that are touted as organic and some of the best, right? The brand is the Earth Best. No way. These are ingredients I would never want to feed a baby. And in fact, baby's got a nice, clean digestive and elimination system. The intestinal system gets gummed up and sticky. All the little cilia, the hair gets, smushed down. And next thing you know, we've got adenoids and sinus and ear tubes and sinus infections, and he caught that cold that's going around at daycare, when in fact, baby was full of bacteria that stuck to the mucus from those ingredients in that baby formula. Whether you're pro or anti-vaccine, put that to the side for a minute. Injecting a baby with aluminum, formaldehyde, and thimerosal is never a good idea. A baby would never naturally come into contact with 6 or 8 major diseases in the first 6 months to 2 years of life. That would never have happened in the natural order, in the natural world. That is unnatural. And so being exposed to that many diseases is entirely unnatural. We wouldn't do it. So that alone is a major hit to the immune system. So when we scratch our head and wonder, why are so many people suffering from autoimmune, where it's alleged that the immune system is attacking itself in the same body? It seems pretty obvious to me. And in fact, I will show you with your hair tissue mineral analysis, your nutritional elements, your toxic elements, your ratios, your metabolic type, your health trends. Dr. Watts is well-studied, empirical, double-blind, controlled studies. This is not a fly-by-night, maybe kind of wishy-washy. This is real science. It really is amazing. It's an EPA-approved lab of 35 years. When he's got phenomenal articles written, I chose this particular lab over any other because I really believed, okay? So now, why would someone have mental and emotional issues? High copper, lots of stress, poor diet, a need to detoxify these toxic elements, but what else? We talked about the baby from baby formula, injections. We talked about removing mother from home and hearth, removing child and putting them into daycare and early fours and longer days. It's too much for the brain for a child to process being away from a mother that would have kept baby or toddler, young child, close to her, right? So that is the natural orders. We would keep our young close to us and we would teach them the ways of life. We are their teacher. There's a great book by Rahima Baldwin called You Are Your Child's First Teacher, okay? Anything to do with children and impulsivity, rigidity like ODD, but rigidity is also slowed reflexes, right? So if the doctor goes to do the little hammer that tests the reflexes on your ankle or any of your reflex points, and they are slow to respond, you know darn good and well you got to take a look at thyroid and what's going on with that tissue mineral analysis, the HTMA profile too, and I'll put a link on the side, okay? So now what's the other thing that I really wanted to cover in this part 1 of Toxic Brain is excitotoxins. You know, I was speaking with someone about, glyphosate and polysorbates and phenoxyethanols and that are in your cosmetic and your lotions. And one of the reasons why, with me owning a business where I did body work and wellness and guidance and coaching, a medicine woman, but today we have to say we're a coach or this or that. I'm a shaman who also happens to have developed, as many shamans do, into a medicine woman. So we tell the stories, we bring the medicine, we look deep inside as we listen, we observe, and we learn about you. I take notes about you. I care about you instead of just having an ascribed protocol that I have to follow. I don't have to follow. I have to stay within the liability, and I can't give medical, legal, or psychological advice, but I can give recommendations, okay? And so excitotoxins are going to stimulate nerve cells in the body, right? Excitotoxins are essentially the same thing as neurotoxins. So you have your nervous system, neurology about the brain, the central nervous system. Neurotoxins are chemicals that overstimulate neuron receptors, brain cells, okay? So they make them to fire really fast, and you can see why just about everyone that you speak with anymore says, I have anxiety. I have social anxiety. I have generalized anxiety disorder. I have agoraphobia. I don't really want to go out. I kind of have a lot of anxiety. I really don't want to do things and get outside. But all of these things with toxic brain in part one here have an issue with your gut. That's why we're talking food detoxification. Have an issue with your diet. So your gut health and stability, your daily diet. Okay. Your need to detoxify, because if you've got toxic elements, and almost everyone I test has something going on, or I can see from your nutritional elements that you likely have mercury that's hidden. And sometimes it doesn't always show up in the hair test. Getting a look at that hair tissue mineral analysis is so important. It's an 8-page report. And then looking at your daily habits, which is what you're going to get when you do the coaching individually. It's private, it's secure, it's confidential. We meet one-on-one through the screen. You can ask your questions. I met with 3 women at the end of this week, and 2 of the women, one that just had a baby and one that is pregnant, had a lot of negative, they felt like almost like satanic thoughts, one person said. Another person said, my moods are so bad. I'm really afraid that the father of my child is actually going to leave me. And, I thought to myself, one of the things about the elders that is so important, which is different than going to a doctor, right? And the people say, well, they're changing. Well, they're not changing fast enough. And they're not changing fast enough, and that's hurting us, because right now, so much is happening with the derangements related to minerals, which are trace elements, with gut distress, with fibromyalgia, which is 100% thyroid, according to Dr. Brownstein, right? With iodine deficiencies, with all the cysts in the body. This is not rocket science. This is stuff that I'm extremely capable to help you do, so that you can take over your own autonomy and your own power again and make something really positive happen. So what about mental and emotional health when you have a diagnosis like bipolar, schizophrenia, and issues like that? Why are so many more people being diagnosed with mental health issues? Why do we have behavioral health wings opening up on hospitals and clinics? Why are schools starting to have a much harder time with students and teachers? And the reason is because we are more and more disconnecting from our original nature. And so as we are more filled with toxic elements, have more deficits and excesses with our nutritional elements because of our food system, it is absolutely imperative that if you want to keep yourself balanced and strong, that you really work together with a coach and you get your diet on track and you find a way to make that really work for you and be successful. So mental and emotional health is not something that some people have and some people don't. It's something that you really have to develop for yourself, given that you've kind of got to dodge, all the food chemicals, the excitotoxins. You need to educate yourself. So if you haven't had children yet, or you've got a baby or a toddler right now, maybe you stop feeding baby formula. Maybe you plan on nursing a little bit longer. Maybe you start thinking about, like the woman that I met yesterday with Ida at the shop where I rent my professional space. I said, your children are so grounded and so healthy looking. They're so present. It was such a gift to be around children that weren't just, impulsive, rigid, sick, pasty. These children were just vibrant. I haven't seen children like that in a very long time. So this is what I'm aiming for, is that we need to strengthen ourselves. And in order to do that, you do have to invest in yourself. You do need to see what's going on unique inside of yourself and figure it out. Like with my client today, we had a session this morning, and, in her case, I could clearly see where her eyes were getting very swollen. She had swelling in her face. And I've had that on numerous occasions, right? And if I get really stressed or I wasn't sleeping because I went through a lot of stress, Dr. Sabi went through a lot of stress around the same year I was born in 1961. He ended up, being in a mental place for, I think it was a week or two. He ended up with, what would I call it? Erection difficulties, right? Sexually erection difficulties. He ended up with many different problems that cost him marriage, finances, and everything else. And I believe, he'd still be alive today if people actually would have really respected and protected him, because he brought real medicine that could have helped us all if we all would have gotten together and really, really supported him. And so there are people that would love to bring medicine and would love to show you, like myself, that you have more power than you might think that you do. I've worked with really a large number of people that had bipolar or bipolar schizophrenic affect diagnosis, and come to find out their aluminum levels were really high, or their zinc levels were super high, and they were starting to get mental rigidity. Because why? They had toxic brain. They had toxic brain syndrome. So anyway, I don't see any questions. If you have questions on YouTube or here at Naturally with Karen, please feel free to write them down in the questions. Your subscriptions to my channel make it so that once we get to 1,000 people, because of the new rules with YouTube, I'll be able to do live streams outside and not sitting inside my front room. So let's try to do that and tell your friends. I would love to bring a lot more medicine, not as a perfect person, but as a real person. So I thank you very much for joining me, and I hope that you'll subscribe to Naturally with Karen. And I highly encourage you to order your hair tissue mineral analysis, especially maybe do the one with the consult of 30 minutes connected. Thank you.